Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes. Melissa, Debbie speaking. How are you?
Hi, Debbie. Apologies, struggled to get in, but I am here. Good afternoon, everyone.
They're all saying good afternoon, Melissa. They're all waving big time.
Oh, well, I can wave as well. There we go. I'm still en route and traveling, but thank you so much for inviting me to attend this in virtual presence. I trust you've had a very insightful day so far, and I'm sure a lot of inspiration is drawn from various presenters. So once again, thank you to Rhodes Library for inviting me to participate in this event.
Yes, thank you, Melissa. We're looking forward to hearing your presentation. But just as a way of introducing Melissa, Melissa Badenhorst is the Managing Director for Worldwide Information Services. It's shortened down to WIS. Okay, and I'm going to hand over to Melissa now. Melissa, you have the sharing rights, so you should be able to carry on from there, and then we will mute on the mic on our side.
Perfect. Debbie, thank you so much for the introduction. Once again, warm welcome, and yes, please do let me know if I'm not audible enough. I am in between various meetings, so dialing in from a public portal, but the audio should be fine. All right, well, just in terms of bandwidth, I'm just going to switch off my screen and then start sharing. I will appear again afterwards, but thank you once again. All right, so without further ado, let me start sharing my screen. All right, there we go. There we go. All right, I'm sure everyone can see my screen. Oh, there we go. And in light of everyone's time, I will keep this as quick as possible. Sorry, let me just. All right, so good afternoon, and I get the privilege of talking to you about driving research excellence with effective planning and assessment. And thank you once again for having me. Our company WIS, as Debbie kindly explained about the abbreviation, is short for Worldwide Information Services. And we are a business partner for information solutions, providing companies as well as publishers. And in this particular instance, I'm going to present using some of the indicators and useful analytical tools that you currently have access to as part of your Clarivate Insights access. So as you can see on the screen, we are the business partners for Clarivate. Just see, sorry, my slides aren't changing. So before I jump into some useful findings and showcasing how you can use insights as a means to assist in building a strategy, whether it's a publication strategy, whether it is a collaboration strategy, I do need to explain a bit more about the tool itself. And if you have any questions about that, you're welcome to reach out to the library or the research office. We work closely with both divisions within the university. But so Insight is a benchmarking analytical tool that utilizes the Web of Science data to provide meaningful results that could assist in research assessment, strategic planning, also looking at collaborations and partnerships. And of course, you'll be able to even evaluate the funding landscape and using those indicators. So when we talk about research analytics as a whole, of course, we've spent a lot of time on focusing on open access publications, where we are going as an institution, what is our research impact assessment strategy. One thing comes to mind, and that is, of course, research integrity, and to ensure that we base our findings on trusted data. So with Clarivate not being a publishing house, but really standing completely publisher neutral and objective from that. They carefully curate and select the information that they index in their resources. So with that, they are able to independently, objectively, and curate the information and therefore provide accurate subject classifications as well. And this has allowed us to look at citation indicators that not only look at the number of papers, but tell us more about those papers, how we can benchmark efficiently and effectively, because the citation indicators are controlled for the type of paper, the subject area they've been published in, as well as the document type. Many people don't always realize this, but we can't compare articles with review papers. The nature of their citation behaviors are very different. So when we start analyzing research trends, we need to compare apples with apples, and that goes as far as comparing the type of papers with one another. And then, of course, having that in our pocket, we can then apply our own research excellence criteria and then formulate our strategy. So understanding the tool itself and some of the data that I'll be showing to you and how you can use this specific tool, we have to understand that any statistical analysis is, of course, dependent on the type of data that feeds into the tool. So Insights is based on the Web of Science core collection data, and it's basically the data source. And in particular, it's not only limited to the accredited journal listing. So the Web of Science, or formerly known as the ISR Web of Science, is notoriously known for the accreditation that first came out in many, many years ago by DHET. So if you published in an accredited journal, which is still the case, there is research funding that gets awarded. The Web of Science, or back then the ISR Web of Science, was the first international accredited list. Over the years, they've remained as one of the key authorities that institutions in South Africa look at when they start looking at where they want to publish. And that covers the sciences, the social sciences, and arts and humanities. So of course we want to see our performance across those various disciplines. But with Insights, it also allows the capability to look at the emerging areas of research, emerging regions of research, because the emerging sources citation index feeds into the tool, but also conference proceedings as well as books. And we know that in many fields, it does seem that books are still the leading publication and the preference publication type. So we are able to holistically analyze our complete research output, because it's not only journal publications that we are looking at. So if we start analyzing our research and we try and determine where do we want to go, either from a collaboration point of view, of course, reporting back on aspects, for example, in line with SDG analysis, we need to often use a diverse mix of indicators. And these indicators are all available within the platform. So we can look at productivity and impact from various perspectives. We are able to apply normalization, which really is just the control that I mentioned earlier on the type of paper, the subject area, as well as the type of paper, the age of the paper. In other words, when that paper had been published. These days, more focus is being placed on, the top performance within a field. So, for example, the highly cited authors. Now, a highly cited author is an author that has published X number of highly cited papers in a specific field. And then, of course, we also have the collaboration scene and journal intelligence. Now, journal intelligence has so many different facets to it, because not only does it support journal collection strategy by the library and information centers, but it can really support your strategy and where you want to publish. So with having access to Insights, it will provide a holistic glance of some of the things that you can consider when you want to submit your paper for consideration. So stepping away from the background information, I thought to just provide some use cases, and then we'll of course delve into some of the findings, particularly for Rhodes itself. So if we look at the use cases of insights, the tool Insights Benchmarking Analytics, and the whole theme for today, what I'm trying to present here is the strategy that can be developed because you've got access to insights. So when we look at, organizations that you may want to identify as potential partners, or if you want to look at emerging areas of research, you want to perhaps select which academic, government, and corporate organization produce the most impactful research. Where are the centers of excellence in a particular region, as an example? And where does my institution stand? When we want to take a closer look at authors, we want to know who are the subject matter experts in a particular region or discipline. And who are the thought leaders, because those leaders can inform our own strategy, it could direct our pathway, and all of that can be found through the help of insights. Also, we may want to see what is the funding landscape for my research in a particular area. As we embark on research, we obviously want to formulate a strategy, not only in the discipline that we are publishing in, but maybe tracking some of the niche trends. And with the AI capability that's now being, it could really help us to track those emerging areas of research. And then lastly, of course, when it comes to collaborations, we want to make sure that we determine which organizations form part of our MOUs. So of course, there is usually an international office that will be able to inform you around the agreements that are currently in place. But very often there are other partners that your institution works with on particular areas, and you may not even know about these. So some of the indicators are also helpful to understand which partners would be the most fitting for the area of work that we're concentrating on. All right, so looking at some of the benchmarking activities that are available through Insights, the tool allows us to see where we stand and really monitor our progress towards our goals. So we can take the institutions that we often collaborate ourselves with, compare ourselves with, and we can see how we ranked against them, either on the impact in comparison, perhaps the number of papers, even the number of open access papers that we've published, the impact of those. We are also able to look at very niche areas that we have published. So this will allow us to see where our topic strengths are lying. The tool drills down into very, very granular details. So you can measure those granular areas that you are focusing on and compare that either locally or internationally. And then many of us need to report on SDG performance. So, or maybe you want to publish in line with SDGs. So the tool also allows for multiple selection of various areas that you can look at. So you can either look at various chemistry fields as an example, or you can look at chemistry overall, or in particular, you can look into the Sustainable Development Goals. Also, what's increasingly important for us is to have the ability to be able to look at funding information. These days, the funding landscape is becoming quite competitive, and you want to make sure that you can demonstrate return on investment to a potential funding partner. So not only are you able to measure your impact by funder, you can see which funding agencies have been acknowledged on other papers. And then you can also determine what the impact was for those papers that have been acknowledged by those funders. We are able to draw overall funder reports on various entities, and we can quickly see a complete profile to help us see whether they would be eligible in, well, of course, from our end, approaching them, but also what was the scope of work they funded and they got involved with. And then something that's also really important is to tie our research, of course, with a level of commercialization capabilities, or trying to see how it would inform commercialization. So one thing that we can also draw, and it's not a complete intellectual property management process, but it is a starting point to see how many of our citations are actually coming from patents, to see how the groundbreaking research that formed the basis really informed the progress towards inventions. So the tool even allows us to try and identify, you know, those the patents and the citations from those patents. And it's in fact over 1.5 million documents with patent data is included in the platform. I've briefly touched on collaborations, and I think it's becoming increasingly important for researchers. I mean, if we go into research data, which of course is not the topic of my presentation, but it's a constant conversation out there. You know, should the data be open? Should it be findable? Should it be accessible? And collaboration fosters the need for sharing information, sharing ideas, sharing data. But we want to be able to assess our collaborations. And when we say collaborations, are we saying collaborating organizations, collaborating departments, collaborating researchers? It really depends on what your question is. So what we can find here is quickly finding our high-performing researchers. So on screen, I have a subset of some of the authors at Rhodes. Of course, I couldn't include all of them. So these are some of your researchers with the highest number of papers, their correlating citation counts, and drilling into their profile, I will be able to see with whom they are collaborating, as an example. Where are they publishing? Which will, of course, help to inform my strategy or where I want to go. We can also analyze across various departments or even industry groups to understand, you know, how has Rhodes been collaborating with industry players? You know, often we look at the academic counterparts and where we collaborate from an academic perspective, but what about industry? So the tool will help inform you whether how many papers a particular organization or even person has been collaborating with industry, but you'll also be able to see or narrow the data down to industry players. So really isolating that from academics so that you could see what the connection is with industry from those various researchers. And then, of course, we often want to see, according to specific research areas, what the regional performance is and how we benchmark against that and how was our collaboration within that space. So once again, depending on the question being asked, you would be able to assess that moving forward. Looking into targeting strategic research areas, you know, often when we set out on a research project, yes, we've got our research question, we go through the pathways of completing our research work, but we also want to try and see what other niche areas have been producing similar research. Many a time that can inform or change our direction even, but it helps you to identify the strengths within your research landscape and then align that with the SDGs. So I know many institutions want to see where the SDGs are going and you know, what have we done as a, not maybe just as a university, but even as a research unit, how have we published in line with the SDGs? What has been the impact? And I mentioned earlier on, there is an AI capability built into the platform that you automatically have access to, and that's called the Research Horizon Navigator. Now, the Research Horizon Navigator tells us what are the emerging topics for a number of fields, you know, even art and humanities, you know, going into life sciences. What is the emerging topics that are arising on a global level? And we can use that to delve into it a bit more and see if we have started working on an innovative piece, how does that align with the latest trends within those areas? So it's a really great way of really uncovering those emerging fields and see how your research aligns with that. The good news is not only do you have, of course, access to insights already, but as a Web of Science subscriber, and because you've got access to both, you may have noticed that when you run a author profile, that you are able to discover some of those metrics within the Web of Science. So if I go into any paper, or if I go into a set of papers, author profile result page, on the right-hand side, and you'll see on screen, you have a block that says Open Comparison Matrix Panel. Now, because you've got access to insights, once you've opened that up, you'll be able to see the normalized citation impact, which traditionally was only found within insights. But now they've integrated the two. So you don't have to log out of Web of Science into Insight. You can now determine whether the individual paper that you are looking at, how is that being ranked in terms of the impact field based on a normalized citation indicator. And you can also view the percentile in its category to see how high that specific paper has been ranked, which further informs whether that paper could be very useful to use as a basis or background within your work. But then again, also determining where that paper has been publishing could help inform your strategy on where you may want to end up submitting your paper. So with insights, as many of us have come to know, there's various ways to get to a result, and those that frequently draw reports would know that you get overall reports and then you get very customized reports. So there are two pathways to analyze the data. So we often run workshops, and if you are interested in a workshop for your department or for your research division, you can reach out to us. We work very closely with the library team, Debbie and the rest of the team, as well as the research office. So we will ensure to work with them to set up a session. So you're welcome to reach out to us. In the meantime, just know that there are two pathways to analyze the data. The one is a more novice approach, where you could help the report builder assistant that guides you through the most general questions being asked to see how it really assists in reporting on various things, you know, from department to organization to publish a report. You can then just go through, you know, the let's say some of the tips that they have there. And then we have the custom approach, which allows us to drill down into a very granular level, as well as address a very specific question. For example, and I will be showing that during the Rhodes use case example, is if you're an emerging researcher and you would like to be considered, getting involved in the NRF submission and rating process, one of the things that you would, of course, look at is peers within the same group and with whom they have been collaborating or with where they have been publishing. So those are very specific questions that you could apply the filters for within the tool and get to the results that could inform, once again, your own approach from a very objective and accurate level. So stepping into Rhodes University research landscape. So if we look at the Rhodes output, we can see ranging from 2018 to 2023. You can do a custom approach. You can limit it to 1 year. You can limit it to 20 years. It actually goes back to 1981. So you can do a thorough analysis from the start if you wanted to. So we can look at the number of papers. Interesting to note is also the normalized citation impact of those papers. So not only are we able to see the number of papers that we've published, but our overall impact. But the Web of Science contains over 254 subject categories. So this is now your total impact for all those areas. And to perhaps present it in plain terms, it's the world expected level is represented by 1. So anything above 1 is above the global expected level. So we can see that roads has consistently outperformed the global expected level in the last couple of 5 to 6 years. Of course, we are able to analyze it even further. We can go into the subject areas, we can view the authors to try and see where have we published, on what direction we were heading, because clearly it contributed significantly and positively to our overall output. We are able to drill down into some of our most productive fields. As we can see on screen, it's the astronomy and astrophysics field, followed by environmental sciences. These are the broader fields. There's multiple ways in which you can view the data, ranging from a very, very specific niche area to overall fields. So this is just presenting from the top 15 most productive fields. We can also view the fields in which we've contributed mostly towards the SDGs. So, of course, it's the international SDG number that we can see. But, of course, we want to make sure that, you know, it aligns with what we're trying to achieve as a unit or as a university. Of course, the more you've published mostly in life on land, and then life below water, climate action, and good health and well-being. We can drill down into those papers to try and find out how many papers we've published for specific areas. We can see from 2018 to 2023, right on top is life on land and the correlating indicators. There's a vast number of indicators that we can add here, including open access, whether we've published in gold or gold hybrid. We can also include highly cited data, which is often very important for us to try and determine where we want to go or what we have done to report back on that. But as we can see, you know, all the areas listed above 1 on the impact score, which is the normalized citation impact. In other words, the papers are compared with one another in the same field from the same type of paper and the same year in which they have been published. The global average or expected level is 1. So you have mostly been over the global expected level, with industry, innovation, and infrastructure doing particularly very well. So of course, those would be one of the fields that you would want to delve into and see who the collaborating partners are, who the authors are, as well as the journals in which they have been publishing, or the publications rather, because clearly you guys are on the right track when it comes to that. Right. Also useful to note is overall to be able to delve into our countries that we collaborate with, and then the subject areas in which we collaborate. So on screen, you are able to see the subject areas in which you collaborate most internationally, and then your co-authors and the countries that they are from. So of course, it's really is determined by the first subject field, followed by the countries that you collaborate with in that specific field, and then they list all the other subject areas in which you also collaborate a lot internationally. So this is all available for you to harvest, even to customize, and then you can delve down deeper into some of these aspects. As I've mentioned earlier, we are able to look into our collaborations from various angles. We can, for example, narrow down to academic institutions or organizations. Maybe we only want to look at industry partners. In this instance, we are looking at academic organizations. So those institutions that are tied with an academic industry would be listed on screen. So in the end of the day, how can I mean, indicators and, research analytics is all useful and interesting, firstly, but it should be useful, secondly, and really have a place when it comes to determining where do we want to go on our research journey. What do we want to achieve? And of course, the essence of it, it helps you develop a strategy. As I mentioned in my introduction, whether you want to set on a path of collaborating with the right partners, or if you need to look at, writing a submission to a funding agency, or if you need to apply for a grant, to be able to track your own impact. And as I explained, that it's also to see how can I align my publishing activities, for example, in this case, if I am concentrating on clean water and sanitation, which is very often a challenge in our country and beyond, and I want to write a innovative piece on this, where should I be publishing to ensure that it's in line with, achieving the results that I want to achieve for SDG 6? So we can just do a journal or publication analysis rather, and see where papers have been published on this, and in what journals did they publish, So any of these journals could then, depending on the scope and the nature of your paper, could be a good fit for you. And particularly those ones that, you can look at the journal impact factor, you can look at the normalized citation impact for the journal, you can look at how well those papers have performed within that journal, you can look at the international scope of the journal and see the variety of different authors from different parts of the world. So it gives you a great understanding of whether any of these journals would be a good fit for you in publishing in that particular field. And then things like, where should I collaborate, to increase my impact and visibility? Because at the end of the day, you're doing work, you're researching a topic, you want to inform, you want to change, you want to educate. There's a level of knowledge that you would love to transfer, you want to showcase something. Maybe you've discovered something, and how can you really increase your impact and visibility? Well, the one thing to do is to see where peers or like-minded researchers have been publishing previously. So using the same, yes.
Sorry, Melissa.
Yes.
Your time is up. Would you maybe try to wrap up quickly?
I am. I'm 2 slides away from wrapping up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So using the same case study from clean water and sanitation, we can identify peer authors from South Africa, and we can see how many papers they have published as an example. We can look at their impact, and if we're not yet collaborating with them, chances are, or, you can reach out to them and try and set up a partnership, or you can see where they are publishing. So it helps us to see where peers are publishing. And for example, if you're following one in particular and you want to see where should I collaborate to increase my impact or visibility, we had a case study of an institution where the researcher wanted to go to China. We did a study then at the time, it was 2 years ago, to look at the most recent rated researchers, and we found the emerging researcher that covered the same topics as he did. And at the time, she was based at UCT, and she did really well in terms of her impact score. And many of her collaborations was in Australia. So we were able to objectively provide that feedback to the research office and say, well, of course, China would be a good option, but maybe you should consider going to Australia as well. Not sure if he ever did, but nonetheless. So in this example, we can look at Faisal and we can see the people that he's collaborating with. We can also see the institutions where those authors are coming from. And then determine whether any of those would be fitting for us to reach out and try and set up a partnership. So lastly, all of this can be saved on the platform. So your dashboard allows you to record some of your frequently reported items. So you don't even have to go and recreate those graphs yourself every single time you go into it. If you need to report on frequent matters, you can set it up and then you can share it with your colleagues or your research group. So lastly, before I close, if you have any questions or you need any help, once again, an invitation to reach out to the library. We work very closely with them. You're welcome to go to the Insights Learning Portal, and I'm sure you'd find useful information there. So on that note, thank you very much. Apology if the background noise may have been interruptive. I hope not, but if it was, I do apologize for that. But thank you so much once again for having me. I will now hand back over to Debbie and the rest of the team. Thanks.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you very much. As you said, insightful at the beginning of your session. I'm always intrigued by the statistics that are generated by Insights, and this is a magic tool, and we do need to use it within our departments. Any questions for Melissa? Yes, Samuel?
Thank you, Melissa. I have a question about the granularity associated with the data that you showcased. I see that there's a overall picture of what's happening at the institution, and it can drill down to the individual researcher level. Is there a middle ground, for instance, for information that would be relevant to a dean or a head of an academic department that would be applicable at that level?
Well, most definitely. And in fact, there is a way in which you could do departmental analysis. The only aspect would be is that we are dependent on what the data tells us, right? So unfortunately, not all publishing houses are standardized in terms of how they collect the information. So therefore, not all papers make provision for the department information to be acknowledged. So it does take a level of creativity to then get that data as a department data into Insights. But for those that have been recorded, in other words, if you at Rhodes have a standard of the department gets acknowledged, you know, there is a department analysis underneath the analyzed results that allows you for department analysis. And then the deans can quickly have a look at that. And it should be able to then give you a good overview result. But yes, there's always many ways, you know, they also have different data sets that you can include. So in other words, not only analyze global data, but a few years ago, we did a study for TIA, their Technology Innovation Agency. They wanted results on precision medicine, which of course is a topic, not a subject area, which combines so many different forms and format of genetics and, you know, alternative medicine and all sorts of things. And we did searches on Web of Science, and we exported that as unique topic data set to Insights, which was really key to what they wanted to see. And then we did analysis on that. So there are many ways in which we can look at it. So the short answer is yes, but it really depends on how the data is collected. But yes, there's many things that can be done. And in fact, it proves to be quite useful in a department meeting, you know, to be able to have a quick glance at where you are as a department, the number of papers, your collaborations, and your impact. So I would definitely urge to use these data in formulating, directing, and supporting your strategy. Thanks, Samuel.
I particularly like what you just said there, Melissa, creating those kinds of statistics per department would really be useful. I have a dashboard for certain statistics that I have to produce for reports, and really Insights makes it very easy to do that because it just auto updates as it all happens and when publications are published.
Absolutely.
Okay, it looks to me like there are no more questions. Melissa, thank you very, very much for joining us. I think we're going to be seeing you in Grahamstown tomorrow. Makanda tomorrow.
Yes, I'm en route there as we speak. So looking forward to visiting your lovely library again. And for those that have joined on screen and those that are physically present, thank you so much for taking the time and listening to me. And I'm sure it's been a good, long, informative day. So thank you so much for taking the time. And once again, Debbie, team, Samuel, everyone, thank you so much for having me. Much appreciated. Good luck with the rest. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thank you, Melissa. Bye-bye. Travel safe.
Thanks. Thanks. Bye.